Hello everyone and welcome back to another deck guide, this time featuring one of the first decks I ever played, the Evil Twins, as well as the newly affordable Fiendsmith engine. This is the first time you've seen me do a Fiendsmith build, and it's not because I don't like the cards, it's more that alongside just trying to keep my builds reasonably budget, I just don't like standalone engines that don't actually synergize with the main deck. That's not a problem here because the Fiendsmith and Twins engines actually synergize like crazy, making this into a highly consistent and powerful Fiend-based deck. So if getting into Fiendsmith without using Moon of the Closed Heavens sounds fun to you, let's get started. First up, let's start with the Twins. The idea behind this deck is that Kill always fetches you a Lila, and vice versa. This is best exemplified in our normal summons. Live Twin Kill is our best normal, and fetches you any Lila straight to field if you have no other monsters on board. Live Lila does the same thing for any Kill, and then Kill Frost is also a starter, but it is quite a bit worse than the first two, and we only have so many space to use on normal summon starters, so we only play the one. That's okay because it's a searchable extender as well, since it summons from hand for free if you have a Lila on board, and can draw you a card on the opponent's turn. Lila Treat is similar, but you have to have a Kill on the board, and she helps you win battles by banishing from the graveyard. Lastly, we have one of the newest cards, Lila Sweet. So Sweet is a built-in hand trap counter. She can discard to negate a card that was activated in response to a live twin card, which is cool, but she can also summon from grave afterwards as long as you have a Kill on board. We're more interested in that graveyard extension effect in this deck, but the security is nothing to scoff at. As for Twin spells, we only play the one, Sunny's Snitch. This continuous spell searches any live twin monster to hand on activation, then heals you and burns the opponent every time they summon while it's on field. Mostly it's just 3 more copies of whichever Kill or Lila you need at any given time. I decided against playing Secret Password, which is 3 more copies of the engine, because normal summoning a twin is nearly impervious to Droll, while Secret Password needs multiple searches just to get you started, which feels real bad to walk into, and we already have 16 starters so we don't really miss it. Next up's Fiendsmith. We don't play a massive package, but we do play 3 Engravers. Every Fiendsmith card counts as a starter except Paradise here, but they go into an abbreviated combo on their own. We're not exactly going into Caesar Pass like a lot of decks do, but they don't have a way to get us into the live twin stuff. Still, Engraver is a hell of a card, discarding to find Tract, summoning himself back from grave, breaking boards, just all sorts of good stuff. And then Lacrima is normally our summon off of Requiem, but she can act as a starter in a pinch since when summoned, she can send a Fiendsmith card from the deck to the graveyard to get the Engraver train rolling. She can also shuffle back in on the opponent's turn to summon a Link monster back from grave, which can in some cases get us an extra disruption. Lurry might not look like much, but normal summon Lurry is full Fiendsmith combo for some reason, and is also needed to make Tract function right. We also have some unique ways of using him multiple times in a turn, since his effect to summon when discarded is not once per turn. For spells, we just play the one Tract. It fetches Lurry, then discards Lurry. It's a starter or an extender depending on your hand, and sometimes the effect to banish it to fusion summon comes up. Then we play the one Fiendsmith in Paradise. This one's kind of odd since we never want it in hand. We want to bin it off of Lacrima whenever we can, because it lets us send an extra deck monster to grave whenever an opponent summons something. We send Desiree can then send a card on the field to grave, so it's just an extra disruption that we can set up most of the time, but not always. Then we're playing a little spice. I wanted to try out the new TCG exclusive Mutiny stuff, so I included a small package that actually comfortably fits into our combo lines. This takes a Rhino Warrior, which is barely a brick. If you send him to grave by any means, he can then Foolish another Fiend, which is almost always the new Buio. Buio is not a brick, since you can special summon it from hand if you have a Fiend on board, and then just use it as extension, and when sent to grave, you can search the new Mutiny in the Sky fusion spell. This is a better Miracle fusion, but can only summon Fiends and Fairies by shuffling cards in from the graveyard. That gives us recycling, especially because we can send a card from field to grave to get this back to hand, but sadly it is once per turn on each effect. We can obviously just do normal Fiendsmith stuff with this, but we also have some more fun combo-centric targets too. I'm also playing a small Unchained package because this is a Fiend deck, and it gives us a lot of bonus disruptions on full end board. We search Sharvara as part of our combos and can summon itself by popping a card we control. That's a bunch of value with the rest of the Unchained stuff. And then, when we use Sharvie here as material, we can set an Abominable Chamber of the Unchained straight from the deck, which lets us special summon an Unchained from the grave on the opponent's turn, which then ends up representing 3 disruptions on its own. And since it's a trap, that means it's layered disruptions, which protects us from losing to a single, like, Dark Rule or anything like that. Then we have 16 non-engine to go with our 16 starters. Nothing too fancy here. Bestials are level 6, which matters in this deck. Droplet can trigger a few monster effects, namely Buio, Rhino, and Charvara, which is some nice synergy. And then we're on to the extra deck. This is the hardest extra deck I think I've ever built. There's about 5 other cards I still feel like need to be in here, but 15 is the limit and none of these can be cut. Duke is normally what we're getting off of Mutiny. He gives us an extra normal summon, a level 6 body, and a graveyard effect to banish himself and add a fiend back to hand. That lets us do neat things like adding back Engraver to pitch him for Tract, even if we didn't start with him in hand. Then we have an Aerial Leader, which is a Foolish Burial on a body. This is normally what we summon off Sequence to bin the Rhino, to bin the Buio, to get us Mutiny. And then Mutiny can fusion summon into Duke of Demise, using the Buio and the Rhino that we use, so we don't actually have to use any material outside of the Aerial Leader. Basically going into Aerial Leader gets us Duke of Demise for free as well, which is kind of sick. It also has a rarely used effect to summon itself back by banishing 2 from grave. We just rarely have stuff we're comfortable banishing since so much of it acts as recursion in this deck, so we don't use that all the time. Necroquip lets you turn Lurie or Lacrima into level 6s and sometimes lets you draw a card. Desiree is a negate, but can often be hard to summon in this deck without cutting yourself off from multiple other disruptions. It's a very, very good card when we can summon it, but more often we just send it off Paradise to send something from field. Kisakill Deal is then the single most important card in the deck. She is a Link 1 that just takes a Kisakill monster, then lets you Foolish Burial a Lilla from deck for a weird floating effect. The effect lets you draw a card every time the opponent responds to your Kisakill or Lilla for the rest of the turn. You might end up drawing like 1 card off of this, which is nice, but Foolish is more important since it lets you put Sweet here into the graveyard to then just summon herself back because you have a Kisakill monster. Even more importantly than that, she's a light fiend, which means your Link 1 can then just Link 1 into Fiendsmith's Requiem. That's just full Fiendsmith combo since this can tribute itself to summon Lacrima from deck, to bin Engraver, to so on, and so forth. Requiem can also equip itself to a Light Fiend to give us something to send for Engraver's Disruption or to summon Necroquip. Then lastly for Fiendsmith cards, we have one sequence which is a Link 2 that lets you fuse by shuffling in from the grave to get your Aerial Leader. It can also equip itself from the grave to make a monster untargetable, which you'll almost always use on Desiree to make him a real beast. Then we've got some Evil Twins, so both Kisakill and Lilla can summon the other one back from grave, either the Link version or not the linked versions. And then if you summon them and already have the other name on field, they have a different effect. Kisakill will draw you a card, Lilla will pop a card. Notably, if they're summoned at the same time, they see each other hit the field and you get both effects, which is very important for the archetype in general. Next up is the Unchained package, with Yama searching our Charvara on summon. Then, when something is destroyed, say by Charvara's effect, while he is in the yard, you can summon any fiend back from grave. Then we have the card you'll be popping off of Sharvie, Rage. So Unchained Soul of Rage lets you add a fiend from grave back to hand whenever it's destroyed, so you can get back Lurie or Engraver or any number of other good cards. And then when he's actually on the field during your opponent's main phase, you can activate him to link him and one of the opponent's monsters into a dark monster. So you use Yama to search Sharvie. Then you can make Rage, pop the Rage with Charvara. Then you can add something back, special summon something back from the graveyard, and then use Charvara as material to set Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. And then on the opponent's turn, you can use Chamber to summon back Rage to link one of their monsters into SP. SP just banishes on summon, then can banish until end step as well, which makes Rage on its own 3 disruptions. Then for our last few, we have a Baoku, which is stellar in most decks, but particularly so in ours, because she can discard a card to summon back basically anything for more materials or disruptions. Then you can pop a monster on the opponent's turn or get something back that they destroyed or kaiju'd or whatever. Just an insanely versatile card that also comes with follow-up, letting you filter through your deck to find the cards you want on your draw phase. Our last link is the Evil Twin boss monster, Trouble Sunny. This link 4 is a little bit strange, but you can tribute her to summon back both Kisakill and Lilla from grave to get the pop and the card draw on the opponent's turn. Then, they can help you break a board by banishing to send an opponent's card to grave. That one's not a quick effect though, so it's more of follow-up, which this deck has a ton of. Notably, a Baoku can actually summon Sunny back, so you can use her as combo material, or you can just keep getting her back every turn to get the pop and draw multiple times. Then last up is Caesar. This is the reason that all of our 6s matter. We have a ton of them, so we can make them with him pretty easily. And he just negates 2 special summons. Sometimes you don't need a card to do anything else. If we're afraid of Nib, we can make him early off of the Fiendsmith line, but that does gut our end board and roughly halve the amount of disruptions we have. Sometimes it's worth it. And that's it for the profile. Let's get into some combos and see it all in motion. Alright, so this is going to be our primary combo, and it's going to be quite a long one. Though note that this is nearly identical to what you will do if you open any of our Live Twin starters, so that's any of our 3 Lillas, any of our 3 Kisakills, or any of our 3 Sunny Snitches are pretty much this exact same line, which is cool because if once you memorize this one, you just know what you're trying to do off of most hands, but this one is going to take a bit of effort to learn. So here we go. So we're going to normal summon the Lilla, and Lilla can then summon Kisakill Frost from deck, and then we can use Frost to go into Deal. Deal bins the other Lilla, and then we can use that to go into Requiem, summon Lacrima, Lacrima bins Engraver. Then we can go into Lilla from the extra deck, summon back both of our guys to go into Kisakill, to go into an early Trouble Sunny, then break Trouble Sunny apart to get both of our guys back, summon Engraver by shuffling a card back in, go into Sequence, go into Aerial Leader bins Rhino, Rhino bins Buio, Buio grabs us Mutiny, and then we can activate Mutiny to go into Duke of Demise. The Duke of Demise doesn't do anything on this hand, but if you happen to have an extra normal summon, you can use it there. And then we can link 2 into a Baoku, go into Yama, we have extra material, so we can turn Yama after searching Sharvara into Rage, pop the Rage to get back Engraver. We haven't used Tracked yet. We haven't even used the Engraver discard effect to get Tracked. So we can add that back off of the Rage when it's sent, while summoning back Aerial Leader as a level 6 body for later, and now we can go into Lurry. So we already have a Baoku, Lurry comes back, we can use Sequence, equip it to Lurry to go into Necroquip Princess, which gives us a 6 so we can go into Caesar. We can then send Sharvara. The reason we do that, we send Sharvara off of Mutiny in the Sky, not for material or anything, but just because we need a way to get it in the graveyard to activate Abominable Chamber from deck, and we aren't going to be able to do anything else out of the extra deck here. We've already used 11 of our extra deck cards. You can see what I mean about this being non-negotiable. And then the last thing we can do is use the Duke of Demise to grab back the Sharvara and discard a card for a Baoku to summon back the Trouble Sunny that we made way back at the beginning of the combo. So now we have Trouble Sunny as a pop and draw, a Baoku as either summoning something back or popping a card. Caesar is 2 negates, Abominable Chamber summons back Rage, Rage links off one of their monsters into SP Little Knight, which banishes 2 cards. We've got Sharvara, which can actually let us dodge some things if we need to get an effect off and they try to imperm something, which is kind of interesting. We have so much. This is an 8 disruption end board. Even though it may not look like that much since we only have 4 cards on field, it is representing 8 disruptions, which is pretty sick. Cool. And then the only other combo I wanted to show you is our abbreviated one we can do with Engraver. Like I mentioned, a lot of decks, if you open just Engraver, are just going to go into like Caesar or Desiree or something. We can do a little bit more than that, but we definitely can't do the whole thing. So we're going to start by pitching our Engraver to grab Tract. We can use Tract to go get Lurie, discard Lurie, summon the Lurie. Lurie goes into Requiem. Requiem can then summon Lacrima from deck, and then Lacrima can bin another Engraver. That's actually important here because we need a lot of cards engraved to shuffle back in for our various fusions. So it's kind of a trap to try and get Fiendsmith in Paradise here. We can actually get it on the opponent's turn, so don't worry about that. Anyways, we use our 2 to go into Sequence, use Sequence to put a couple cards back to go into Aerial Leader. Aerial Leader bins Rhino, Rhino bins Buio, that gets us Mutiny. We can then activate Mutiny to do another fusion summon to get Duke of Demise. We can then go into Unchained Soul of Yama to search Sharvara, and then we can go into Rage. That lets us use Sharvara, pop the Rage, summon something, add something, search something. So we notably have not normal summoned, so we actually add the Lacrima back to hand because we've used Tract, so there's no reason in us getting Engraver back. So we add the Lacrima back so we can normal summon it so that we can have our full 4 materials for Abawaku. So now we have Abominable Chamber, Abawaku brings back a 6, Mutiny in the Sky sends it back to grave just to get the Mutiny in the Sky back as extra stuff. We can banish Baron or the Duke to get back Sharvara, and then Abawaku comes back on end phase. So this one, again, it's mostly an unchained end board, so we can use Abominable Chamber to bring back Rage. Rage links one of their cards off into SP, same as the first one. And then Abawaku is either a pop or a summon. And then we also have Lacrima and Requiem still in grave. So Lacrima on the opponent's turn can shuffle itself back into the deck to summon Requiem, and then we contribute Requiem to summon the Lacrima to bin Fiendsmith in Paradise, which is an extra disruption. So again, another board that may look pretty innocuous, but it's 5 disruptions this time as opposed to the 8 from our primary combo, which is still pretty good, especially considering we have a ton of follow-up. And we're back with closing thoughts on our Twinsmith deck. To keep it brief, this is the only deck I like Fiendsmith in. As I mentioned at the start, I'm not a big fan of just shoving engines into a deck because they are good. I like my decks to feel cohesive. And this one does. Like, Fiendsmith's a very powerful engine, I'm not denying that. I just don't like how it feels to play it most of the time. But in this deck, where you're going from the live twin stuff into it and then using it to augment the live twin stuff, and there's this overall fiend theme, it's really cool. It actually fits very well. The things I will say about power level is that being able to play cards like Tract and Engraver as extension really help out the twins, because twins, they have a lot of normal summons and not a whole lot of good extension outside of like Frost and Treat, and you don't want to play a whole ton of them because they don't give you much in the way of extra value outside of the extension itself. So, you know, just being able to play a bunch of Engravers in the Tract helps a lot with that. And Buio as well. I shouldn't gloss over the fact that these are brand new TCG exclusive cards that slot into a deck that previously existed. This is a known deck, but they slot in here very, very well and help our end board quite a bit and make everything easier to do, give us more recursion, give us more extension, just generally very, very good cards. The weakness is, as I've said a couple of times now, just we're pretty normal summon reliant. That said, if we normal summon Kisakill and that gets interrupted, we can still go into deal, send the suite, summon the suite back, and then turn deal into Requiem, and we still have full Fiendsmith combo. So, like, we're not that interruptible. And as I kind of glossed over when I was talking about Sunny's Snitch and Secret Password, if we normal summon Kisakill or we normal summon Lilla, we can get very deep in the combo before we ever get drolled, which is so, so cool. we're just like nearly impervious to it, and once it happens, it's just like, oh no, I guess I'll cut off like 1 or 2 disruptions and end on most of my board anyways. So just very, very dope deck. This is, like I said, it's the only deck that I like Fiendsmith in, is this one right here. I do want to address extra deck. Some people are probably going to be like, oh, why aren't you playing blank? Why aren't you playing blank? There are good cards that we simply cannot fit in here. There are certain circumstances where Djinn Buster would be very good. Djinn Buster takes 2 level 2 darks, it's a fiend in and of itself, and it's just a monster negate. You can make that early with any 2 Lillas, and we can specifically do lines to get into that, but it means that we end up only on like 4 disruptions on the opponent's turn, and we can't always do that, and it's just a space in the extra deck that we just do not have, that I wish we did. I would love to have the space in the extra deck. Same with Luce, I guess Luce. The Dusk's Dark, this is actually the boss monster of the new Mutiny in the Sky archetype. And it's a pretty cool card, but we just don't have the room. It would be like number 18 maybe, if we had a 20 card extra deck. So yeah, very, very tight extra deck. I'm not even 100% sure it's correct, but I am sure that every one of these cards needs to be in here. And then lastly, I want to leave by mentioning one of the major reasons I wanted to do this deck now is because a lot of the Fiendsmith stuff is getting reprinted, and that means it's going to be much more reasonable to actually obtain. So it's still a little bit expensive right now, but actually the $200, a lot of that comes from Fuelos. You take the Fueloses out, and that goes down by almost $60 in and of itself. So, you know, Fuelos is a lot of the price. Tract is kind of expensive, but we're only playing 1 Tract, and it's getting reprinted anyway, so if you want to hold out a little bit, it's going to get cheaper. The Bishals are getting reprinted, so those are going to be cheaper. A Bawaku is $12, which is a bit, but it's not ridiculous. So the deck is going to be pretty cheap pretty quick, which is cool, because the Fiendsmith stuff has been so expensive that it kind of has priced out people a lot for its lifespan. So, you know, I wanted to throw this one out now that it's going to hopefully be affordable pretty soon. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Cool. Bye.